You're listening to Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
You're listening to the Business Showcase. I'm your host today, CC Schatz, author, radio personality, and CEO of My Friends Connect. Welcome to the show, and today we're going to get right at it because we've got a great topic. Again, we're going to talk about mediation because you know that is my hot button. With today's way of divorcing, it saves you money, it saves you, I think, heartbreak. And so we're going to talk with Elizabeth Esrey, and we're going to talk with her about mediation and why it's important. But firstly, let's find out a little bit about you, Elizabeth. How did you get into this type of work?
Well, I was going to go to law school, and my counselor in college said, I think your heart is more in the conciliation route. Try this. Chicago Bar Association was trying a pilot program in mediation, working mostly with community disputes, but then we started working with corporate disputes. It was back in the 80s when women were trying to break through the glass ceiling and how men and women kind of got along relationship-wise in a professional realm. And then I took kind of a hiatus to raise my own children and work on my own marriage. And then I finally got back into mediation full-time and focused mostly on the family stuff because I think that's really where the value is. I think families can benefit greatly from mediation. So it's been a long journey, but I love what I do.
What I like so much about you, and I'll be really upfront about it, is that you worked with the Chicago Bar Association Center for Conflict Resolution. And so you saw what it's like for all that conflict, all of the hassling going back and forth. And I thought that was really great because it seems like you were exposed to that, but you realized there was a change that needed to take place. And so in your career, that's what I believe that you're trying to do. Am I correct?
Yeah, yes. I'm really trying to make a difference without being an attorney and without having people go to court when it comes to family issues.
Let's just break that down in elements because, as you're going through divorce, there's so many different factors that are involved. There's your emotional factor. There's your financial situation. And it's also the fear of the future, of what the future holds for us. So when we combine all of that with going through divorce, we're struggling with that separation anxiety that we, of course, all go through. But it's also a leg up. You're talking, and you really shouldn't be because at the end of the day, the result is going to be the same. There's going to be a division. To try to make that as clean and as professional as we can make it, and as a saving of oneself is tremendous. So what kind of advice would you offer someone if they were going to look at mediation? What would you suggest to them?
It's a great question. I think you need to be ready, and I think that unfortunately you both need to be ready in your journey. Just because one person thinks it's a great process and they're ready to, as you say, sort of advocate for themselves and kind of stand on their own and start to heal. And mediation is a great process for which they can start to heal even while they're going through the divorce. I know that seems a little contradictory, but it really is the way that the process works if it's done well. But I also think you can't rush the other person into it. That's the biggest challenge I find. So often one person will call me and they're ready and they want to use the process, but the other person isn't quite there. And I do think they both need to be there in the journey for it to be about the best process out there. But if they are both there at the same time, I think they need to make sure that they find someone who is neutral. I think they need to find someone who is a facilitator. A lot of times you can get therapist mediators and you can get attorney mediators. And I'm not saying that they're not good choices, but they might not be the best choice. I think for some people, the histrionics of the marriage and what went wrong might not be as beneficial as the forward focus that many mediators should be taking. And then I also think the other thing that can sometimes be negative is when they try to get too much embroiled in the legality. I think for most people a divorce is an emotional separation, not as much a law separation. And so they just need to find the best fit. And that means calling people. And most mediators will give a free consult. And so taking advantage of that opportunity to sit down, both of you, and figure out if this is the right mediator for you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. What I like about it so much is that it's really putting you as the person in the driving seat versus when you go through court, you're going through all of the different statutes and different timelines and all the different things that take place in divorce. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. It's just a process that you have to go through. But I think with mediation, it allows you to step back, maybe do it at the pace that you're comfortable with because you can attack certain aspects of it, division of your assets and division of your debts and parenting plan. And you could do those in segments that you feel comfortable with. So you could do one day and then tackle another one another day. So you can take a breath in the process of doing this. But it's all about choice. And so to be able to choose your mediator, to be able to choose the process, to be able to discuss your parenting plan so that you can put together a great plan that'll benefit you as a family unit is so vital. And I think it creates a more whole environment for our families as we move forward after divorce. So I love what you do. And let me just ask you, when I was looking at your resume, your bio about yourself, you've really been exposed to a lot of areas that are outside your actual hometown. And so you've been to South Africa, California, various different places. How do you feel that has embraced you as a mediator?
I think it has made me realize not to oversimplify things, that people really are well-intentioned, that even in the midst of a divorce or in South Africa, anti-apartheid, you will find, despite what the media likes to tell us, the majority of people are well-intentioned, and we want to help each other through those downtrodden times. And we want to, there's nothing better than in the midst of a mediation for the divorcing couples to say, of course the children need to be with the mother or the husband. They are a great father or mother. And any attorney or any therapist, that doesn't mean as much coming from their mouth as it does meaning coming from the soon-to-be ex's mouth. And I think we are mostly well-intentioned human beings. And I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think that's what I've learned in my travels. Now, maybe those are the people who gravitate to mediation, the people who want to take the higher road, but I have found that no matter what your socioeconomic background is, what your geography is, people can put their differences aside, especially for the sake of children or for the sake of their better well-being. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I think that's very good. And so often when we expose ourselves to other environments, other situations, it really enlightens us as to being able to move forward in our lives and be able to, it gives us a sense of grounding, doesn't it? Because you're able to really work with people at a different level because you've experienced different situations. And so as a mediator and what you're doing, that's very vital. And it's a really great thing to be able to offer your clients that knowledge that you have, but also that sense of, we can make this happen, let's work together, that type of attitude. And I think that's really great. So if you were going to give an individual looking at, as they're going through divorce here, some tips, is there anything particular that comes to mind that you think would help them?
Well, I love what you said, because I think it's very rare when a layperson understands the benefit of mediation, which is the process and how it can go at a speed that works for the clients. So, to your point earlier, yes, you can slow down the process and you can digest, is this the right parenting plan? In fact, I often tell my clients, we need a 24-hour sleep on it period because these are your children, or this is your new lifestyle, if you will. So go home, show this potential mediated agreement to people who love you and who you trust, and say, does this seem like I could live with this for a few years? So I think what you had said earlier is just spot on. The clients are in charge, and not only are they in charge of what their lifestyle will look like going forward, but hopefully they recognize they're even in charge of the mediation process or the legal process or the therapy process. Again, whatever shoe fits best for them. And they should feel empowered by that. And they should use that for good, for their own good, and for the sake of their children or other people in their life who they're trying to protect through this process. And the other thing I guess I would tell people is, don't be ashamed. Things just don't always work out. I always feel so badly for my clients who have an enormous amount of guilt or burden because they're divorcing. And I would just love to wish for them to feel like some levity and to let go of feeling the baggage that comes with a failed anything, if you will. It's not a failure. It just didn't work right now. So I guess those are the things I would tell people as they go through this. Some tips is, give yourself a break and take the process slowly, and also take it seriously for your own sake. And then find someone who's good, who you trust, and work with that person and let that person take a little bit of the load off for you. That would be my answer.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of it. So let's say we go to a mediator and we're able to get through some of the issues, and we're haggling them out, we're agreeing on some things, and we want to be able to move forward. Now, do you write all of that up, and does that get submitted to the court? How does that process work?
No, so as a mediator, because I'm not an attorney mediator, you're not supposed to practice law. No mediator should be practicing law or advocating the law. I mean, that's pretty clear internationally. And if they are, then they're frankly just not mediating. I can take it so far as writing a mediated agreement, and even that writing, kind of a loose term because I'm really just a scriber. I'm trying to do it in language that works for my clients. So the real work comes in writing the mediated agreement, because in my opinion, that is the blueprint for behavior going forward. And it's my job to be asking those who, what, when, where, why, and how questions, because everybody else is in an emotional fog, or they're so connected with each other they think they can fill in the blanks for each other. You know what I mean? And it's a left to be determined scenario. And that's fine if they want it to be that way. A lot of my clients want it to be sort of loosely written so that they can allow their own organic needs to be filling in the blanks later. But for some of them, they really need it to be very solid, at least early on. They're sort of trying to rebuild trust, and they're trying to establish boundaries. And so I acquiesce to whatever they want, but they should walk away, if it's in their best interest, with a written agreement that they can usually present to court. Now, I can't say for all 50 states for sure, but at least in the ones that I work in California, Colorado, Illinois, actually, Kansas, and Missouri, you can go pro se and present a mediated agreement to a judge. Now, there's no guarantee the judge will accept it, but usually he or she will. Judges are more apt to like mediation. Some other professionals are apt to like mediation. So you should be able to present that on your own. But going pro se, there is paperwork, legal paperwork that needs to be filled out, and I, as a non-attorney mediator, can't. Now, I bet you an attorney mediator could probably step out of the mediator role and into filling out the legal forms. I'm just not 100% sure. And then a therapist, of course, therapist mediator would not be able to fill out the paperwork either. So you can do that pro se. You can do it through LegalZoom.com. I'll tell you, this is a really good cost savings tip. A lot of districts have the forms online nowadays. And that's a matter of just getting a cup of coffee or getting a glass of wine and trying to muddle through the forms either independently or together. And that would save clients time and money if they could do that outside of even the mediation process that they were opting in to mediation. So there are some really good, I think people need to take advantage of what's out there on the web, technology of modern day divorce, and try to use that to save them time and money so that they're not taking days off work or hours off work, that they're doing it 11 o'clock at night if that works for them and they're mentally ready to do it then. Those are some tips that I think might help people. But as far as the nuts and bolts, the other thing that's really important about the mediation process that I think people don't understand or underestimate often is that it's confidential. And I think that's another thing that's going to become a big issue for people is privacy. I don't think it's important for people to be able to look online and see where my divorce is and what's going on. And that's happening today. You can look up the last name of someone you know is in the midst of divorce, and you can probably find out information on whether there's been a motion to garner child support or whether the person's been accused of drug use and has to pee in a cup and has to supervise visitation. Things like that. And I love the confidentiality piece of mediation because, again, I just don't think that's important information to broadcast to the world, where you are in your divorce and what some of the details of it are. So I think the confidentiality is a big piece that I really appreciate. And then as far as nuts and bolts, I think they also have to be prepared to, like you said earlier, advocate for themselves. So they have to be in a place where they have their voice and they can advocate what they think is in their best interest for themselves. So are those good nuts and bolts, do you think, for people to understand?
Absolutely. Okay. And good savings tips there, too. So I thank you for sharing that with us. And I do so enjoy looking at things differently, even though it's divorce and it's sad and it's terrible. And I hope that, marriages, I would love to have marriages stay together, but the realism is they're not. And we're having to deal with this. And I see the sadness continuously. And so what I would like to bring to our listeners is other ways of looking at things and embracing today's world. And I love what you say about being confidential, because so often things are on the internet, they come up and you never can get rid of them. And so it's very important to be as kind to each other as we can as we're going through this very sad time in our lives, because we want to be able to move forward. And especially if we have a family unit, we want the family unit to still be intact, to still be able to communicate and allow our children the growth that they need to have in that safe environment. I thank you so much for being on the show today and expressing all of this and sharing this knowledge. It's tremendous. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And I will say I am impressed by what you're doing, too. I think it takes a village of us to try to tell people, let's raise each other up instead of tear each other down. So kudos to you for what you're doing out there.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Now, Elizabeth's writings have also been published at the Huffington Post, the Divorce magazines, and Your Teen magazine. So you can read some of her writings that are out there, and I hope that you all will do that. Research her and pull her up and read some of her articles. And, of course, now what is your website? If someone wants to contact you, how do they go about contacting you?
Oh, thanks, Cece. So that's EsreyMediation.com. So it's my last name, which is Esrey, and then mediation.com.
Wonderful. And did you want to also give your email if someone wants to email you?
Yeah, that's great. It's EsreyMediation@gmail.com.
That's great. And again, you had mentioned different states that you work in. You want to mention those again so people can, see if they're in your area, if they could contact you?
Well, yeah, I can work in pretty much any state. So that's because I can do phone mediations and Skype mediations and things like that. I've done it in New York. I've done it in Canada, actually, California, Colorado, Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, Texas, and Florida.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. So that's great. I'm glad I asked that question. It's great to know no limitations. So if someone is divorcing today, they have some questions, they need some help, they can contact you, and you can either help them or point them in the right direction. So I think that's great information to know. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Cece, thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, you're listening to Elizabeth Esrey, and again, her website is www.esrey, mediation, mediation.com, and just contact her, check out her website. If you want to email her, it's Esrey, Esrey, again, mediation, mediation, @gmail.com. You can email her and she'll answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much again for being on Going Solo. And we are going to feature you in the Business Showcase, so I appreciate you being here with us on Going Solo Network. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Wonderful. Well, here we go. Once again, listeners, with another great show. I hope that you are enjoying it as much as I am, and I hope that it is feeding your soul, your knowledge, just getting you and transforming you into the way that you want to be. So that's what it's all about, us moving forward and our movement of choice. So I appreciate you being with us each and every week, and I hope you stay tuned to all the other great shows here on Going Solo Network. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.